Welcome to Changelog, where we explore the latest updates, enhancements, and changes to New Relic itself. In each episode, we dig into new features and functionalities as told by the people who envisioned, shaped, and even coded them. We discuss the inspiration and data behind the development, as well as common use cases and applications. I'm Leon Adato, one of the New Relic DevRel advocates, and joining me this week are Checo, that's just his name, Director of Product Management on the Incubator team.
Hey, great to be here, Leon. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Also, Emory Zhao, one of our product marketing managers.
Hey guys, nice to meet you all.
And finally, Josh Biggley, Senior Product Manager for Product Innovation, and my brother from another mother and a friend for at least a decade. Josh, we're back on a show again!
Right. Hey, Leon, it's good to be here. Although I'm still holding lots of things against you, which we can talk about later.
Yes, it has to come up in almost every conversation. And for those who don't know, you're just going to have to keep listening. I'm sure it will come up. Anyway, I know that we're here for a specific topic, but we're more than just talking heads with a title. So, can you tell me a little bit about the work you do, and more importantly, something that you find exciting in the world right now, something you're working on, whatever. And Checo, I'm going to start with you.
Absolutely. So, I'm Checo, and as Leon noted, I recently joined the product innovations team at New Relic in order to help design some new solutions and new exciting features for all of New Relic's customers. So I'm coming to New Relic after being a customer and huge advocate for 10 years. Very excited to be here. And let's see, in my free time, I've been writing epic fantasy novels. So I just released my first book last year. It's called The Trials of Ilderwood. Very excited about it. It's been a dream come true for me. And I'm getting ready to release the next book in the series. It's actually a prequel this coming January. So very cool.
Okay, and I'm going to have a link to the Amazon link in the show notes because, when somebody has created something, we want to support that person especially. So go look for that if you're watching this in later times. All right, Josh, what's going on?
Well, I won't bring up the story about why I hold many things against you.
Yet.
Let's see. So I've been in the tech industry for about 25 years now. I spent the last 3 years at New Relic. Like Checo, I was a New Relic customer. I get bored an awful lot. That means that I've held a number of different roles at New Relic. I've been a technical architect, a technical program manager, and most recently a product manager at New Relic. Recently, I've taken up archery. Yes. Specifically barebow archery. For those who don't know what barebow is, it's like Olympic recurve, except none of the balancing mechanisms, which is a lot harder. I do it mostly for the mindfulness. It's just me and the bow and the target, usually not the bow, or usually not the arrow on the target, but that's the goal eventually. If I'm not obsessing about my form or my failure in the archery space, I'm probably doing my other favorite pastime, which is investigative research, which all the cool kids call OSINT, open source intelligence now. Actually preparing to work with an organization out of Toronto called Trace Labs. Trace Labs uses open source intelligence to go and find missing people. So they pair with law enforcement and help find people and reunite them with their families. So yeah, that's what I do for fun.
Wow. Okay. It's a hard act to follow, but Emory, I'm trusting that you can do it. What's up with you?
Yeah, hey guys. I'm a product marketing manager at New Relic. I recently joined. I'll be focused on marketing our telemetry data platform and network monitoring capabilities, obviously. So in my spare time, I like to go to movies. I watch a lot of independent movies, big film buff. I play a lot of video games, watch a lot of pro sports, especially NFL, NBA. Go Warriors, go Patriots. Swimming. I'm not good at swimming. I'm actually trying to get back into being good at swimming because I've always wanted to learn and swim in open waters and do a triathlon. And I'm getting older, so I want to get it off my bucket list. And I'm also recently getting into riding motorcycles too. So I got a lot of things going on in terms of hobbies. I came from Dynatrace and ServiceNow in my past. I did product marketing in those places too. And yeah, that's all about me. I don't do OSINT, though I think that's really cool actually what you do, Josh. I didn't even know it was a thing where OSINT was like helping people or helping find missing people. So that's actually what I know OSINT from is like, like military or something, like wars.
Right.
So I didn't realize there was like a very more humanitarian aspect to it where you can actually directly help find people.
Yeah, I feel like it's a direct extension of my love of data, which is part of the reason I picked monitoring and observability as a career, because all the data, but this is just a different type of data used for different purposes. It is very cool. Very humbled by the people who are incredibly good at it, because it's an immensely difficult skill to develop.
Wow. And we will have links to those resources as well for people who might want to up their own level in OSINT as they go on. Okay, so, we got to pay the bills. We have to get down to some work. Today we are here to talk about VPCs. Now, for anyone listening who thinks that VPC stands for Very Pretty Cats, I am sorry to have to tell you that they're virtual private clouds, which is Amazon speak for your slice of their network. So when you build an application in AWS, all the pieces, whether they're the VMs or the microservices or Lambda functions or whatever else they have to be able to talk to each other on some sort of networking thingy, and that's what a VPC is. And more importantly than those pieces talking to each other is that nobody else should be able to talk to them unless you explicitly allow it. So I'm curious, who wants to give me a quick review of why VPCs matter, and especially why they matter in regard to monitoring and observability?
I mean, I think that, Leon, this goes back to the pitch we made last year when we released network monitoring as a capability. So go back to August of 2021, where we said, look, to do true full stack observability, you've got end users, applications, infrastructure, and then we kept waiting for the punchline, and the punchline is network. You and I come from a space where network was cables, sometimes coax cables, way back when.
Right.
But now networks are virtual. We subscribe to them. We don't build them. And so understanding how your network performs, and more important, how two endpoints in your network are communicating to one another is really valuable. For all of the old school network engineers on the line who are thinking, oh, this sounds an awful lot like network flows, like my IPFix, S-flow, J-flow. Yeah, except you don't have to worry about configuring your layer 3 devices to export that telemetry. Amazon does it for you. So now you can see how many bytes, how many packets went between this EC2 instance and this interface on this IP address from this port to another IP address and port. It's wonderful. It's a lot of data. So if you're a data nerd, great. If you're not a data nerd, what do you do with all that data?
Right, exactly. And you can find out why this Lambda function is watching Hulu at 9 o'clock every night or something like that. Anyway.
Lambda function. Go to bed, Lambda function.
You need to get your sleep Lambda function because I'm paying for it by the second. Okay. So because nobody wants to implement technology for technology's sake, and Josh, I think this goes back to what you were saying, is that if you're not a data person, you're probably saying like, well, okay, I'm not, so why do I care? And I think that's a valid question. How does VPC flow log monitoring help with your environment? What problems does it solve, or what does it help you identify in the long run?
Yeah, right. Every outage, every problem you have, whether it's with a host, an operating system, or an application, begins with, is it the network? And VPC
It's
flow,
never the network.
Right. It's always DNS, I know. And
it's always DNS. Yeah.
But VPC flow logs are explicitly built to give you insights there. They can say, I have a host, and that host has a web server, and that host also is making API calls from that web server out to an authentication service that I know is at this IP address. How do I know that I can actually successfully make those outbound calls? How do I know the traffic that's coming in on port 8080 or 443? VPC Flow logs give you those answers, and they give you the answers whether or not you can understand looking at packet captures like you would do in a physical network. This is like taking the superpower of network engineers and condensing it into an easy to understand series of source, destination, and attributes about the performance of those communications.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
I think too, Leon, there's other components to that, right? So, before coming to New Relic in a previous life, I was running a large scale hosting platform on AWS. We had over 25,000 virtual instances. A lot of times, going back to your original point, when you're triaging an incident, it could be DNS, it could be a code deploy, an application trying to connect to a third party service, or it could be two servers just trying to communicate to each other, right? When you're working as any real business in the modern era, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, you need to be able to diagnose issues quickly. Every minute counts, every hour counts. You have to get your mean time to resolution down and your customers and business back up. And what we found, again, as a hosting provider at the time, was that if we didn't have certain details, incidents that should have been solved faster took much longer, right? And sometimes it was just missing a little bit of context. And as an example, we at the time, like many New Relic customers, were going from EC2 instances to microservices. And we weren't prepared for some of the changes that was involved in that. And as an example, like, we knew that all of our hosts were up. We couldn't figure out why sites were down in certain scenarios, right? And it turns out, well, we did this change, we did that change, and the change blocked two services from communicating to each other. So everything else was healthy, right? The apps are down, the servers were healthy, but they couldn't speak to each other. And having access to those insights is critical to quickly figuring out if it's a data flow or connection problem versus just the host is down.
Right. And what I hear you answering, there's a DevOps person in my head who is like, well, just, roll back to the previous version, or just, reload the instance or whatever. And that is valid. I mean, that is part of the CI/CD pipeline and all of that stuff. But we're in environments now where things change so much, so often, and there are so many changes all happening simultaneously that sometimes those interdependencies are missed for 2 or 3 deploys that you don't realize until that last trigger, that last one. Actually, this hasn't been working all the way back to this rev, but we didn't notice it because we had this other thing compensating, or we, or nobody tried that function or whatever.
Or it's like what we would see a lot is it was released, but a certain condition hadn't triggered it to take effect, right? It needed a threshold, it needed an action, a reboot, a relaunch, any number of things. And suddenly that's what triggered the behavior. So now you're 10, 15, however many code deploys deep. You don't think that thing you released a few days ago or last week had anything to do with it.
Right, exactly. And again, I think that if you were writing perfect tests, if you were, if you had an environment that perfectly mimicked production, that you were trying things out in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you'd avoid some of these, but you'd never completely, you'd never completely miss them. They're still going to happen. And what we're speaking to not is how to avoid making mistake, but when, not if, when mistakes occur, how do you recover? How do you have that insight? Okay, cool.
Right. You have to know when you make the mistake. Sometimes you won't even know that you made the mistake.
Right.
Yeah.
Until customers leave.
Yeah, and you raised another really good point, Leon, which is, you mentioned DevOps, right? But, keeping in mind, New Relic has a wide array of different users, right? I was a product manager at the time. We had developers, we have ops people, network engineers. So you've got all these different personas that are looking at the data. And the thing that Josh and I and Emory really love about this new feature is that it very cleanly visualizes where the data is flowing from and to, right? And it allows a person who doesn't usually operate in the networking space to just very quickly identify, is this a problem? Is there an anomaly? So that even in a scenario where they can't themselves do something about it, they can at least say, all right, this issue we found, this is what we think the root cause is. I'm going to escalate to Amazon or to our network engineer or whoever, right? So that's what you're trying to achieve with these types of data.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to ask one of the elephant in the room questions. I mean, obviously, this Changelog is sponsored and run by New Relic, and at some point we do have to pay our bills. Orthodontists and stuff like that, like to get paid regular. But I got to ask, why would someone not just use the built-in tools that Amazon provides?
I think the best way to answer this question, Leon, is for me to demo what we have.
Okay, then let's go straight into the show and tell part. There we go. Actually, I think we'll do sideways. There we go.
Sideways it is. All right. So think about when you log into the AWS console, you're usually a cloud ops engineer or someone who has access to that environment. Imagine you're an application developer and you're trying to figure out, I've got a host where I've deployed my application. How do I know what it's doing? Let me set the foundation here. I have a single EC2 instance. It has New Relic's infrastructure agent deployed on it. And I've already used the new feature that AWS released on September 8th, where I'm sending VPC Flow logs out to Kinesis and then using a data fire host to send those logs out to New Relic. If I go here to network monitoring, I get taken to my overview page. So this is my account, and I've only set up Cloudflow logs. If I wanted to set up any of the other functionality, I could. And we can see this overall summary. If I click on this, I get taken to a view that shows me this Sankey chart. Remember we were talking about, hey, what if I'm not a network engineer? How do I figure out really quickly whether or not I've got some issue with communication? And geez, how do I know what host it is? So not only can I look at my traffic, I can also add in some sort of new attribute. I might say, well, I want to know which direction is this traffic going, and I want to see the packet traffic versus the volume of traffic. I can now see the number of packets that was egress to HTTPS or was ingress HTTPS. I can see the charts. I can see the raw logs. I can also really quickly, I'm going to drop out flows here, and I'm going to increase this to 15. All right, I can really quickly see that there's an instance ID and an IP address here where they have the small underline and the status icon. What we've done in the background is we've taken that IP address that you see in a flow log entry, and we've taken that EC2 instance ID and we've mapped them to the actual host. So now if I click on that, I get this right panel that slides out and it says, hey, this is the instance ID, the infrastructure host where that IP address is assigned to an interface. And here are the metrics for that host, different than the metrics that you see when you're looking at Cloudflow logs, but very much relevant to, hey, I'm trying to figure out, is this a network issue? Or is it because I've got no disk space left, or memory utilization or CPU utilization is high? And I can dig into not only the details there, but all of the processes associated with it. And if I built some entity relationships, which I haven't, I could look there. I could look at those as well. If I want to jump out and look at the EC2 instance, I click on that details button. Now I've jumped over and I can dig into all of the details around this infrastructure agent. So you asked, why wouldn't I use just the regular AWS tools? And it's not that they're insufficient for the people that they're built for, but what we've built is a tool that takes VPC Flow logs, connects them to an infrastructure agent and the applications that are running on those infrastructure agents, and says, hey, even though I might not know a whole lot about networking, I know how to find an IP address, I know how to find an EC2 instance ID, and now I'm taken to this host that might be having problems. Maybe I want to go backwards though. Maybe I want to look at an infrastructure host and I want to see what are the cloud flow logs.
I'm going to hold you up on that one just for a second, because for people who are watching, we've been sort of taking a bath in a lot of the stuff that you're just walking through. I want to start off with Sankey. A lot of people aren't familiar with just Sankey representations, and I think that is, to your point about making it easier for adjacent people to understand what they're looking at. The idea that the thickness of the line tells you how much data, and then you color code it based on whatever. That's what we're looking at there on the screen there, is, I think, an important differentiation. An important thing to understand is that we are not just showing you data happened, but also how much and where, what direction, and so on. And then the other point that I want to underscore is that because all of the information, whether it's metrics, whether it's logs, whether it's the flows or whatever is coming in, we can correlate them together and say, well, this device was participating in this kind of behavior, but it also was participating in these other kind of behaviors with all these other things. And to what Checo was mentioning earlier, you've got the human brain, you can connect the dots. All right, I just wanted to offer a little bit of that context. So now we're going to go backward, right? So tell me again. I want to understand what again?
So we're going to go backward. We're going to say, I've got a host. I want to see all of the VPC flow logs where that host is either the destination, or it's the source, or I want to see all the traffic where it's source or destination. And so now this IP address, which belongs to, fortunately I didn't change my host name, which belongs to this EC2 instance ID, I should see it as a source and as a destination because I've picked both. But wait, there's more. I always wanted to say that.
Okay.
One of the great advantages and powers of the New Relic platform is the ability to visualize telemetry in ways that are stronger than a dashboard. Yes, stronger. If we're really interested in understanding not just like the traffic that goes back and forth between two endpoints, we can go and explore these logs in detail in the logs UI, or we can explore flow log deviations in tools like Lookout. But that's it. This is why you want a third-party platform. You want to connect the data to other data points and allow you to navigate between one data set, in this case, VPC flow logs, to another data set, infrastructure, and then interweave that data. This topology of telemetry, this is what you want, especially at 3 a.m. when you're trying to figure out, like, is it the network? It's never the network.
It's never the
always DNS.
Or it's a bad code deploy.
Or a bad code deploy. Right.
Or the database.
Evil. No. I love databases.
Okay. I just can't eat a whole one anymore. Okay, so that was pretty good. I mean, hopefully this is some compelling stuff for folks who are watching it. Anything that anybody else wants to add here before we move over into the lightning round? Okay.
Great demo, Josh. I actually learned a lot even just watching it.
Oh, good. Well, there we go. I learned a lot too, actually.
Right.
The very best way to learn is to teach, right? So there you go.
Exactly. Okay.
We'll do an encore.
Perfect. All right. So then we are in the lightning round. This is any final thoughts or parting ideas that you want to leave the audience with. I will start off by saying that we might have gotten to an episode of Leon and Josh on something where he doesn't talk about the thing that he will always hold against me. That might have just happened, but we're going to see because I don't have the final word. Checo, any last thoughts?
From my perspective, again, coming from, my background running infrastructure for a large scale hosting provider, what we often found is, we were always so reluctant to send data if we didn't have a need for it in the moment. And, we've joked a few times on this call, like it's never the network. Sometimes it is the network, right? Sometimes it really is a thing just can't talk to a thing. And I've seen that happen enough times where, we waste precious minutes, hours trying to troubleshoot only to find out, oh, X can't talk to Y, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's one of those things where you should always try and err on the side of caution and send at least some data, even if it's at lower granularity, depending on the data you're trying to send. so that you have some perspectives. You at least have some signals to indicate, yes, this is possibly a root cause, or no, this isn't a possible root cause. Because once you eliminate those, it allows you to focus on what else it could be left, right? So that's my recommendation to the viewers. If you can send data, even if it's the lower granularity.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, I know it's final thoughts, but I'm the host, so I get to do whatever I want to. It's never the network except when it is. And just because it's never the network doesn't mean you shouldn't check that it's the whether it's the network, so you still need to check it even so. Okay. Josh, final thoughts?
Echoing what Checo said, silos suck. Unless you're a farmer.
Okay.
And then it's okay, but silos suck. Share your data with the people who need to answer the question. Maybe to echo what you said as well, it's not the network usually, but trust and verify are very much. You should trust your networks, but you should also check them. You should also trust your friends for when they hire you to start at a new company, that they won't retire. They won't tell you 4 days later that they're leaving that company.
And there we have it.
I had to squeeze it in. Come on, we were talking about trust issues.
Right.
It's a miracle we're still friends a decade later, right?
It is. It's a miracle that the story is never not relevant.
Right.
Okay, Emory, save me.
Yeah, I can't save you because it sounds like a loyalty issue here, but my takeaway is, obviously repeating what we've kind of said quite a bit, but, I think the key as someone who's very green to all this is that it really simplifies the observability that you need. So you kind of understand, as someone who doesn't know about networks, or maybe has a very bare understanding, that you can look at what Josh just demoed and see how you get to these endpoints, and you could see how the data is flowing and know, okay, well, this is probably where a problem can occur. And of course, what I said was very, I did not have the nuance, but I could at least get the basic concept. So I think that's like the biggest value, I think. That's why it's important. You could have, in some ways, you could have someone on your DevOps team. They could have, or your entire DevOps team, they could be more accountable to when problems occur, because everyone can see this and they don't need the highest level network engineer understanding to just know, is it the network, right?
Perfect. All right. Well, Emory, Checo, thank you so much for joining me. Josh, you too. I appreciate all three of you taking some time with me today. I also want to thank everyone watching. There is an overwhelming amount of video content for every one of us to binge on, and we at New Relic want to thank you for spending some of your precious binge time with us today. If you've enjoyed today's show, please don't forget to subscribe so you can get notifications of when new episodes drop. For New Relic Changelog, I'm Leon Adato.